World Trade Center was always known as a very, very strong building. Don't forget, that took a big bomb in the basement. Now, the basement is the most vulnerable place because that's your foundation. And it withstood that. And I got to see that area about 3 or 4 days after it took place because one of my structural engineers actually took me for a tour because he did the building. And I said, I can't believe it. The building was standing solid and half of the columns were blown out. I mean, so I happen to think that they had not only a plane, but they had bombs that exploded almost simultaneously, because I just can't imagine anything being able to go through that wall. It just seemed to me that to do that kind of destruction is even more than a big plane, because you're talking about taking out steel, the heaviest caliber steel that was used on a building. I mean, these buildings were rock solid. And, it's just an amazing thing.
Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. This is Luke Rudowski of WeAreChange.org. And of course, it wasn't just Donald Trump that had very serious questions about 9/11. It was also a lot of family members, a lot of rescue workers, a lot of government whistleblowers, and of course a lot of professionals, including a lot of architects and engineers that gathered and organized together in order to present evidence contradicting the official story. And joining us today with very exciting developments and news surrounding the fight for truth for all those affected by 9/11, we have the founder of Architects and Engineers, Richard Gage, joining us today. Richard, it's been a while. How are you, and what are some of the most important developments from the new research, the new evidence that has come forward surrounding 9/11?
Life is going at warp speed, Luke. We have so many irons in the fire right now. We're taking the evidence from the University of Alaska, which has conducted a 4-year study of the collapse of Building 7, completely pulling the rug out from underneath NIST, the official story that says this building came down by normal office fires. Well, Professor Halsey and his team of PhD researchers have concluded unequivocally that this building came down due to a global collapse involving the near simultaneous removal of all the columns in the building. Now, what can do that? So that is the essence now of a major effort to get NIST to come to the truth, finally, come to Jesus, right? NIST is the National Institute of Standards and Technology, who was tasked by Congress to explain these 3 collapses to the American people, including Building 7, the 47-story skyscraper that collapses uniformly, symmetrically into its own footprint on the morning of 9/11 in the exact manner of a classic controlled demolition. And NIST has some elaborate explanation for this. So we've challenged them on 8 key vulnerable points that they have, and we'll be suing them because they denied this request for correction, which you can do with agencies in the federal government that commit fraud like this. So we're also taking this report and the evidence, the explosive evidence, with 156 first responders now orally on record with explosions and seeing flashes of light. We're taking that evidence, the forensic evidence of thermite and nanothermite in the peer-reviewed papers, and this is all going now to the UK. We're getting this evidence into the international court system, helping Matt Campbell get justice for his brother Jeff, who was murdered in the North Tower. We only have small pieces of his body. As is true of thousands of others. In fact, 1,200 people we have no trace of whatsoever. They're just vaporized. This evidence through the Twin Towers also adds up to an incredible turnaround for most everybody who sees it. It's just like getting hit over the head by like a 2x4. But this is going to one of the top. Well, the top barrister, they call them in the UK. These guys are expensive. We're raising $100,000, and we're 3/4 of the way there to help the Campbell family get justice on behalf of Jeff by ordering a new inquest into Jeff's death. And so this barrister has been successful in challenging the government on many occasions. He's a former coroner himself and an advisor to the UN. We went right to the top, the best one in London. and they're $500 an hour. So that's more than I make. We're doing it though, and this is going to be an exciting development in the 9/11 truth community, as is, and Matt will be at our conference coming up. He'll be at the our online conference, Justice Rising 9/11 in 2020, where we look back and we look forward. We set the ground for the next few years, as we're realizing we got to gear down, and this is going to take some time. And we're climbing up the hill here still with the 9/11 Truth Movement, which you started with back in 2001 or two, was it, Luke?
Yeah, I mean, it was very early on where, there was I was in New York City, and I knew a lot of people that were affected, and there were so many family members, so many rescue workers. So this is kind of always a kind of strange day for me. It's still shocking that it's been 19 years. It's been 19 years since that fateful day, and it's still never easy to grasp the full ramifications of, especially with the way that the government conducted themselves, and just so many questions, so many of them unanswered, and the science is there. We had so many people in the mainstream media. We had so many people lose their minds and talk about the science. It's all about the science this year. Well, Richard, you're proving to them there's science contradicting a major official story that has ultimately set America's footprint for the next 100 years, its foreign policy, its directives, its larger geopolitical moves that have been made that had huge, severe ramifications that set the United States where it is right now. It's worth looking back at. It's worth investigating, since, of course, of the larger implications that this event had. But again, the science is there, and I'm excited about this lawsuit. I mean, what are some of the larger ramifications here? What are some of the communications that you're having between the legal team? Is the legal team that you're trying to hire on board with this message? Are they fully with you on this? Give us as many details as you can, because this is very interesting with this latest development.
Yeah, Nick Stanage is one of the top, and he's with us. He's blown away by the evidence he's seen. It's very, very exciting to have a person of this caliber, of this stature. Nick Stanage from Doughty Street Chambers in London. This is a tailor-made lawsuit. Also, Luke, this is all we have to do is prove, based on the evidence that we've had irrefutable, overwhelming evidence for forensic and eyewitness testimony for over 14 years. We've been assembling and packaging this. All we have to do is prove that it might result in a different outcome for a new inquest into his brother's death. And it absolutely does. And so Matt will be with us as one of our first speakers tonight at our online conference, Justice Rising. And so I encourage everybody to come and watch. It's free. It's at ae911truth.org. So starting with Matt Campbell there. And then the NIST request for correction with Ted Walter, Tony Zambodi, Mick Harrison, the legal and technical team behind this 100-page effort, which NIST has now, 4 months later, denied. And so we have legal actions forthcoming that we're going to talk about tonight about that. And then we turn it over to the Lawyers Committee for 9/11 Inquiry with Dave Meiswinkle, Mick Harrison, Barbara Honegger. They'll be going on about the FBI lawsuit. What's the update about that we've submitted our evidence to the FBI on previous occasions, and they didn't give it to Congress as they were obligated to legally in the 2015 9/11 Commission review. And then they'll be talking about the grand jury petition that we've submitted to the Attorney General, Jeffrey Berman, who's now been replaced. So we may have some positive news tonight on that as well. The Lawyers Committee will be submitting their second petition for a grand jury investigation involving the 9/11 anthrax attacks and how that's an integral part of this conspiracy and the awakening for people and reaching outside the 9/11 truth movement as well. We've made a new film on Building 7 and the study that Leroy Halsey, PhD, has undertaken, and which we've sent now to 400 top engineers and universities around the country. And this new film called Seven by Dylan Avery, creator of Loose Change 9/11, that's now been seen in its various forms and platforms over 100 million times. Dylan Avery's won many awards actually since then. So that'll be exciting. And Leroy Halsey will be here in person tonight. That's tomorrow morning. Tonight we start at 6 p.m. Eastern, by the way, at AE 9/11 Truth. Tomorrow afternoon we start at 3 p.m. Eastern with the Building 7 extended clips, so people can see that. That film will be ready in about a month, but we can see those clips. And then we go into the technical details of the World Trade Center 7 study with Roland Angle, who leads our project due diligence team. And they have 40 volunteers that have now given 30 presentations around the country to engineers. We're having great success reaching particularly the student chapters of the American Society of Civil Engineers, who, along with NIST and the American Institute of Architects, have been covering up this incredible crime of the century that we're going to be exposing tonight and tomorrow, because we're bringing back Stephen Jones, who hasn't spoken now in many years, and David Ray Griffin on the same platform. These are giants, pioneers in the 9/11 Truth Movement, and they're back, along with Niels Harrit, who will be talking about their respective contributions and reflections. They'll be reflecting on their experience in the 9/11 Truth Movement. But we go to the big picture on Sunday, Luke, at 6 p.m. Eastern. We start with Daniela Ganzer, an expert on 9/11, false flags, and wars of terror as a result of, and since and before 9/11. So don't anybody miss that. Or John Whitehead of the Rutherford Institute, a constitutional attorney, who will be with us talking about 9/11 and the advancing police state. So he's an expert on this subject, and he's on board as well with 9/11 Truth. And then, of course, we top it off with James Corbett, the inimitable James Corbett. The Library of Alexandria is on fire. He's going to take head on the massive censorship that you have suffered more than anybody, perhaps, Luke, but so many others. And even 9/11 Truth itself as an issue has been publicly threatened by YouTube. And James Corbett is going right into the heart of that. So all that happens tonight, tomorrow, and the next night at ae911truth.org.
Yeah, the censorship is really incredible, especially with, people demanding the truth. Right now, Building 7 in the making of this video is trending on Twitter. There's another hashtag that's, I think, #1 in the United States, and it's called All Buildings Matter. I think it was originally meant by Black Lives Matter to point out some kind of social political commentary, but a lot of people are hijacking it and are saying, all buildings do matter, not just the Twin Towers, but specifically World Trade Center 7, Building 7, that, of course, no one wants to talk about. The building that the BBC reported collapsed 20 minutes before it actually did, when it was still in the backdrop of their video shot. I mean, the extent of level of just contradicting evidence is just absolutely mind-boggling. We still don't know the truth. I know a lot of people like to nitpick and say this happened and this happened. No one, again, one thing we have to understand here, the burden of proof is not on us. The government told us a bunch of lies. They tried to get Henry Kissinger to investigate the whole thing. And still, to this day, we have so many unanswered questions, so many documents not released. Even Donald Trump's attorney general previously refused to release a lot of these documents. We have Donald Trump right now, who, by the way, previously accused Saudi Arabia of having their hand in 9/11. As we know, there was many hands in 9/11. I don't want to get caught up into the theories. We never really theorized anything here, but it's funny, Richard, how we're being characterized as these crazy conspiracy theories. Meanwhile, there's no theories. There's data, there's science, there's architects, there's engineers, there's evidence, there's presentations that you could look at and make up your own mind, and that to the system was an absolute threat. If we remember Loose Change, which we were all working on, you were working on it, I was working on it. That was the first movie that went absolutely mega viral on the internet. It couldn't be stopped, and then we saw Google take off Google videos. They stopped the trending page because YouTube stopped what was actually number one viewed, number one commented, number one in news and politics, because we would always dominate that section, and then they had to get rid of it. And now we have the algorithm, which gives you absolute nonsense and crap, like shows that I don't even want to talk about that Netflix produces that they want you watching. But gosh forbid you freaking get to see some actual evidence that contradicts the official story. Man, they can't have that at all, even though we have a president now that directly contradicts the official story himself, while at the same time being a part of an effort of not giving the family members all the details and information about what actually happened to their loved ones. It's absolutely crazy, Richard, what's happening out there. Anything else you want to say about the legal actions, where things are moving forward? I mean, you're doing very important work. I want to thank you for all the work you're doing. We need people to do the litigious work. We need people to move forward. We need people to present evidence and information. And I think you've done a really incredible job with that, doing it very professionally. Anything else you want to say about what you're doing and how do you see things moving forward?
Well, I encourage people to see the new 20-minute film that was made by our staff member, Andy Steele and Kevin Larson, and even Dylan had a hand in it. So that's coming up. It'll be played tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern. Also, we press on, Luke. We just don't stop. After this, we'll be sending another 400 of the 135-page study of the finite element analysis that is done by the University of Alaska in Fairbanks over the last 4 years, and this will be going out to engineers and engineering associations and universities, and we've already sent 75,000 postcards alerting them to the study and how they can read it, download it for free, which anybody can do on our website, by the way, ae911truth.org. So that's what we got going on. And so I'm grateful to tell you about it. And for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, sometimes people share your videos, which is great, right? We reach outside the choir. And the echo chamber of 9/11 Truth Movement has to be expanded and broken through. And so those of you who don't know, we're talking about the 3 World Trade Center skyscrapers, of course, and the forensic evidence showing that Building 7 came down at free fall, which means that not any of those 82 columns gave any resistance for its a third of its 7-second fall. That means you can't be bending columns and free falling as fast as a bowling ball falling out of the sky. This is the essential ingredient, but a key component of evidence right there in the videos. It's all measurable. And we've done that in our work, 9/11 Explosive Evidence, Experts Speak Out. And the evidence for incendiaries and explosives is also overwhelming. And we touch on that in our webinars. Well, we go into it in depth in our webinars every Thursday. So don't miss one of those. They're archived on YouTube if you do miss them, but they're Thursdays at 1 p.m. Pacific, and it's called free on YouTube, 9/11 An Architect's Guide, a 3-part series. Part 1's Building 7. Part 2 is the explosiveness of the Twin Towers. Part 3 is the incendiary chemical reactions and devices that have been used to bring down the towers. So we won't get into that evidence now, but it's all there for you.
Richard, thank you so much for joining us and being a part of this independent media broadcast, and then still keeping up the fight. It means a lot. It's a very important one. It's hard to talk about, mainly because of all the censorship effort, and there's a big concerted effort by special interests to squash any legitimate critical thinking. 9/11 was the first major event that they started censoring speech, and it's only getting more outrageous, more wild, and more out of hand. 9/11 is a very, 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 very important day for what we're experiencing right now. We deal with that. We could deal with a lot of other things. Richard, thank you again so much for joining me. Thank you again so much for watching. Stay tuned for more here on wearechange.org. Love ya.